No, come on.
Asian species introduced in Vancouver, British Columbia.
Yeah.
Bizarre, eh?
But around this area, why this area?
They're
World-class
great, but-
birding in the middle of a
like,
city? Some find it hard to swallow, but why not stay tuned and see for yourself?
Hi there, fellow birdwatchers. Welcome to Vancouver, British Columbia, a big, beautiful city that is, remarkably enough, full of interesting birds to watch. For example, did you know these aren't just seagulls and crows around us? That's the glaucous-winged gull and the northwestern crow. They're Pacific Coast specialties that you can't see anywhere else. Vancouver is nestled in the very southwest corner of mainland Canada, where the mild coastal climate makes it a prime winter destination for both birds and people. It is also, by far, the largest city in all of Western Canada. I'm going to go birdwatching today in Stanley Park with Nancy Barron, who is the Director of Education here at the Vancouver Aquarium and an old birding buddy of mine. And we're going to concentrate mainly on waterfowl because so many water birds overwinter in this area in the winter, but you never know what we might see. By the way, my goal in this television series is to see 200 species of birds. Right now I'm at 75 after only 2 and the beginning of the 3rd episode. Wish me luck. Looks like we're going to have no trouble getting to that number. Despite ever-increasing congestion, Vancouver has some of the best city parks in Canada, and I met up with Nancy along the seawall which surrounds Stanley Park. It was a cloudy November morning, warm at least by prairie standards, and the variety of water birds we saw in the harbor was absolutely astounding. This is good.
We've got 4 red-breasted mergansers, 3 females and the 1 male. I love how they jump when they do their little dive.
Oh, I just caught the end of that. Oh, they're beautiful birds.
I always think that female mergansers look like Phyllis Diller, you know, sort of having a bad hair day. And the males have sort of got more of a slicked back good looks of Clark Gable.
And two more cormorants just came in.
Those are, now there we've got the pelagic cormorants.
Oh, those are pelagics, yeah.
Yeah, see how they've got a much finer head.
And is that, at this time of year, they don't have a white mark on them?
No. And if you're here in the spring and the summer, they've got those big white rump patches.
Yeah.
The breeding patches, but this time of year they're very nondescript, but they're a much slighter bird.
Oh, and then they have no orange throat patch, of course, either.
No, it's darker.
Oh, that's lovely.
I love that.
And here we are watching these birds way out when they're widgeon right.
Oh, these wigeon, yeah.
Right
look, wigeon coming into the salad bar. Oh, that one's got a little bit of sea lettuce. Do you see how the green stuff?
Bright green.
Bright green. These guys have got a real advantage because they can walk, they can dabble. They're very versatile. They can even do little shallow dives, which is perfect for just picking along the shore here. And they're sort of like the all-terrain vehicle of the duck world.
The all-terrain? Oh,
yeah, well,
you're going to have to explain that one. Right?
Well, they walk on the shore.
I
quite
see.
nicely,
yeah.
right? So
they still waddle. I mean, they're not great waddlers.
No, but I mean, for a duck, they're good. Look at how they got really long legs. I mean, that's what you call a leggy duck. And their legs are further apart, so it gives them that ability to walk on the shore.
Ducks are okay, but I love watching gulls too. And apart from the ubiquitous glaucous-winged gulls, we were also treated to some good looks at a few mew gulls, smaller birds with a delicate songbird-like head. Inspired by their beauty, we went off in search of more water birds.
You know, after you've been at this bird watching thing for a while, you'll want to get a spotting scope as well as binoculars. Now, why would you want a spotting scope and binoculars? Well, here's the answer. Binoculars make a bird look anywhere from 7 to 10 times longer. A spotting scope can make a bird look anywhere from 15 to 60 times longer, in this case 22 times longer, which gives you some chance of identifying birds that, are way the heck out there. And hi there, how are you doing?
Tiger. Hi. Ho, ho, ho.
Ho, ho,
Humbug.
indeed.
Ball, as we always say.
And what was I saying here anyway? you can get some chance of identifying and seeing the behavior of birds that are way the heck out there, like those grebes and loons and what are these things here? Surf scoters. Excellent.
There's probably no better place for waterfowl for a person in a city to get to. Like, this is one of the best places anywhere. All of the ducks that spend the year inland on those little potholes, or all across the Caribou or up north to the Arctic, they all head out to the coast about this time. So they're all gathering along the shores of Stanley Park and along southern BC. Because at least here the water's still opening. Meanwhile, where they're in the summer, it's all freezing up.
Everything's
So
frozen up
yeah,
on
can't get in the fridge.
Yeah. So they, instead of going south, they just go west.
That's right. So for many of these guys, the migration is out to the coast, and for some of them, it's actually down. Like some of the ducks, like the harlequins, that spend their summers raising their young up in the mountains, come out to the coast too.
Sure, yeah. Oh, I hope we see some harlequins
I hope we
too.
see some harlequins.
Yes. Here's a nice raft of ducks.
Yeah, well, mostly Barrow's goldeneyes. And one of the really cool things about walking around the seawall here is that there's probably more Barrow's goldeneyes here than anywhere else in the world. In fact, they say about 80% of the world's population is hanging out in southern BC around this time of year. Yeah, so it's no surprise that we're getting these big rafts of them just gathering around, hanging out.
Wonderful.
You know what they look like to me is somebody with white paint on their hands made a grab at the side of the duck because it was just trying to get away, and left their fingerprints along the side. See that?
Yeah, yeah.
Another thing I like about the Barrow's goldeneyes is that they court all winter, because, you know, when they come summertime, when they're heading up north and they're looking for a tree hole to raise their young, and they don't have a whole lot of time to mess around. So they sort of get through all the foreplay out here on the coast and then get down to business when it comes, you know, springtime, and they looking
and
for
that's
a
when
site.
they're throwing their head back and doing all
Yeah,
those funny body postures.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And the males do a lot of this head tossing and laying their head along their back, and the female swims at them with her head kind of sneaky like in the water and sort of gets them all excited. And they tend to hang out with the surf scoters, which are the big sea duck with the big white patch on the back of their head. And that's because they're all into mussels. Those blue mussels, you know?
Oh, right, yeah.
The little blue ones that stick themselves onto rocks with their little threads. And so the big honking-billed surf scoters dive down and they tear the mussels off the rocks. And the Barrow's goldeneyes love mussels too, and they're all excited and they're swimming around, and they pick some of their own, but they're also not above stealing mussels.
Because they've got a little tiny bill.
Because they've got a much smaller bill, so they can't get as big juicy mussels as the great big surf scoters can.
Oh, fantastic.
And when you look at the beach here, there's all sorts of little bits of blue mussel shells.
Oh, sure, it's all mixed into the sand there. Yeah.
And the surf scoters actually, they swallow the mussels whole.
With the shell on.
Yeah, just like, you know, the mussels that you see, you know, down on the beach. They just gulp them down, and then their gizzard grinds it up. And so it's kind of like, you know, the fish in the Caribbean that eat the coral. They just pass it through, and they're making blue sand.
So what else have we got out here? We've got the Barrow's goldeneye and
and we got little buffleheads.
buffleheads mixed in there.
Yeah, the big white patched buffleheads. They're a pretty tough little bird too. You know, they hang around. They're sort of cousins of the goldeneyes. They're diving ducks. All these are diving ducks, sea ducks.
Is that the smallest duck we have here, the bufflehead?
Yeah. It's definitely the smallest diving sea duck, except for maybe a ruddy duck.
Oh yeah.
Which we'll have to look for. Gosh, it'd be nice to see a ruddy duck.
Yeah, I love ruddy ducks.
But we tend to get them more in freshwater. This time of year, we'll look for those when we make it to Lost Lagoon.
Before Lost Lagoon, we had to stop by the famous Cormorant Cliffs, even though the cormorants themselves spend most of their time in winter on the bridge pylons.
So these cliffs are the favorite hangout of a fairly significant population of pelagic cormorants. And if we were to come around this corner in the summertime, we would smell it literally a mile away. It's incredibly strong. It's amazing, if we actually could count, there's an awful lot of nests here, probably, you know, well over 100. And these are where the pelagic cormorants fly in, and they just take the teeny tiniest little ledge, and then they just, you know, take the tiniest little bit of seaweed and stuff and you know, poo into it, and that forms a nice little sort of concreting material. And they build these little kind of basically almost like little dung piles. And they're facing inwards, and they're just like one on top of the other, and you can see these big streaks of, I think the technical term is guano, that stream down the cliffs. So anyways, what the pelagic cormorants are doing is they're just sitting at a great waterfront view here, and they just fly off the nest, and they go off in search of their fish, and they come back, and they just fly right in, face first, and basically just kind of sometimes literally bounce off the cliffs. And the funniest thing is when they leave. They just kind of take a great jump off backwards, and they just flap like mad, and then they sort of get airborne again and head off fishing. But one of the things I like best about this is a perfect example of nature recycling. Because with all this guano, this time of year, in November, when it's raining every day, all of these nice nutrients get washed down off the seawall. All the plankton are feeding on those nutrients, and then all the little fish are feeding on the plankton, and then all the cormorants are eating the fish. And it's just a beautiful
Back up
thing.
onto the cliff.
Yeah.
Oh, it is beautiful.
John, there's a harlequin duck.
Where? Oh, right in there. Oh man. Oh, it's a male too. Oh, that's gorgeous. That is nice.
When was the last time you saw one of those?
Oh, it's years. Maybe on the Bull River in Canmore.
Yeah,
Remember that? That was,
yes.
Way years
Oh,
ago.
that is such a gorgeous duck.
Oh, wait a minute. Look a little farther out. That loon that's a red-throated loon, isn't it?
Where?
That's way out there. Here, I'll get the scope on it. Is that a red-throated?
Yes,
think it is.
yes.
Red-throated
it is.
loon, red-throated
It's a
loon.
little upturned bill.
Yeah, this is
Finer, much finer than the common loon.
Is it? How do you?
White throat. It's a much smaller.
Oh, that red-throated loon and harlequin duck. Bang, bang.
All right.
Not bad. Yeah.
Off to one side, a gull was preoccupied with a dead flatfish way wider than the gull's head. Surely that bird wasn't thinking of swallowing it. Unbelievable. Look at the lump in its neck. The sun poked out by the time we got to Lost Lagoon, which is, by the way, one of the least lost lagoons anywhere on Earth. Even with traffic, airplanes, and the downtown skyline in the background, this uncommonly urban lake has earned a name for itself as a first-rate birdwatching hotspot, again because of the tremendous variety of waterfowl that overwinter here.
Oh, nice to see the old squaw,
Yeah.
ruddy ducks,
lesser scaup, greater scaup, common goldeneyes,
hooded merganser,
barrow goldeneyes, bufflehead,
mallard,
canvasback,
canvasback,
yeah, American wigeon.
coot.
What else? Man,
Oh, it's just amazing that there are this many kinds of ducks, not only on this place, but in general.
Yeah, and you know what I think is so interesting is that here we are, we're looking at all of these ducks on the surface, but a lot of the action's going on underneath. Like half of the ducks, like the wigeon and the mallards, are dabbling, just putting their little up tails all and feeding on the shallow stuff. And then the scaup and the canvasback are diving, but they're not competing because the canvasbacks go right down to the bottom. They kind of like things like snails.
Oh, yes. Oh.
And the scaup, they like the less deep water, and they've got specially designed bills for sifting through the water and straining out things like little amphipods, shrimp-like creatures. And then there's the little dabblers that are right at the surface, like the wigeon and the mallards, and they just tilt their little bottoms up because their feet are nicely positioned right in the center of their body to give them that nice little fulcrum, and they feed along the surface. But if the pickings are getting too slim at the surface, some of those dabblers, like the wigeon and the mallards, become thieves. And they actually steal what the other guys are digging up from the bottom.
From the divers.
Yeah, from the divers. So dabblers, particularly the wigeon, and coots, which aren't really dabblers, they're sort of thieving types. But it's sort of, a nice way to make sure that there's enough to go around, even though it's every duck out for himself.
And we've been seeing these flocks of scaup and goldeneye coming in off the salt water for the evening.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
A lot of these scaup will actually head out when it gets a little bit darker, the greater ones, and they'll feed during the night. And it's kind of like changing of the guard. All of the goldeneyes that we saw when we were walking along the seawall booted back here, and they're all resting. So that's why we've seen these great flocks
Oh, I see this
wheeling
big
in
movement.
and landing. I just, you know, of all the places, we've gone birding a lot of places. This is one of the best places in the
It's
world
fantastic.
for ducks. And here we are in the middle of a city.
With this big fountain and all this. And not just any ducks, but some really rare ducks too. The fact that there might be a tufted duck out here, and there was once a smoo here.
A smew.
Smew?
Yes.
Not
yeah.
just a smoo, a smew. Unbelievable.
It kind of reminds me of something.
What's that?
Duck's Ditty. Have you ever heard Duck's Ditty?
No, is this a poem?
Yeah, it's a poem. It's out of Wind in the Willows.
I've never
Goes,
heard it.
All along the backwater, through the rushes tall, ducks are dabbling up tails all. Duck's tails, drake's tails, yellow feet a quiver, yellow bills all out of sight, busy in the river. High in the blue above, birds whirl and call, but we are dabbling up tails all.
My kind of poem. Wood ducks and raccoons are always a treat to see, and Nancy and I weren't the only ones out to enjoy the birds. Great blue herons are amazingly tame here, and by the way, we did find a ruddy duck or two and a female hooded merganser just for good measure. The next day I drove south to Ladner and the Reifel Migratory Bird Sanctuary. When I arrived, I was promptly bitten by a totally wild sandhill crane that has adopted a tame crane as its partner. John Ireland is the manager of the sanctuary, and he very kindly gave me a tour of the grounds and the birds. So how long have you been here, John?
I've been the manager here for about 10 years now, almost 10 years. I've been coming out bird watching for 20 years to this area.
Is that right?
Yeah.
How long have you been interested in bird watching?
Oh, almost 40 years now,
Oh, is that right?
since I was very young, 6, 7 years old.
Yeah.
I'm not a biologist as such. My trade is in the construction. I used to work as a bricklayer, stonemason.
40 years of bird watching, that makes you a biologist to me.
Wow, you could say that, yes.
Among the thousands of ducks on the sanctuary ponds, one immediately caught my eye. A perfectly intermediate natural hybrid.
There's a pintail-Mallard cross. That's quite a long tail. It's trying to curl up a little bit. Like
Right.
like
And you
the
know, I'll
mallards
bet you
curling
can't
up.
even find that bird in the field guide, can
No, somebody should do a guide with all the hybrid ducks.
you? Right,
in
because
it.
it's just about perfectly in between.
Yeah. People see that bird and they look in the book and can't find it because it has the pintail beak and the pintail rear end, but basically mallard in between. A little bit paler on the front, not as deep burgundy red as the mallard. And the neck is a little bit longer, like the pintail, a little bit thinner.
Well, that's right. Now there's the
That's
the pintail.
So it has the beak and the tail.
and the mallard there.
Yeah.
What a fascinating bird. We got a good close look at a gadwall there too, a dabbling duck with a subtle but elegant color pattern. In fact, a lot of generally shy birds, such as winter wrens, made appearances that morning. Brown creepers too, which was a real treat for me since I rarely see birds of this species up close.
There's lots of little birds here. The chickadees usually come to your hand. These guys, we have 4 different chickadees in BC. This is the black cap. Get a few mountain chickadees and chestnut-back chickadees. These chickadees are quite hungry this morning because there's a bit of frost. So their appetite's a bit keener.
A red-tailed hawk soared away overhead, looking powerful and majestic as usual. A golden-crowned kinglet passed by, while a very approachable Cooper's hawk watched intently for unwary songbirds like this golden-crowned sparrow, which was a lifer for me. and the rufous-sided towhee, which is about as big and flashy as a sparrow can get.
So are we just about to the observation tower now?
Yeah, that's just down in the corner here, and we'll have a look out for the snow geese on the foreshore, which is where they'll spend most of the low tide period, and they all roost out there at night, so they never stay in the fields at night time because of the coyote problems. Well, John, this is the south west marsh and the west field here. We flooded in winter for the duck. It looks like it's working pretty good. There's a few long-billed dowitches just there lingering.
Oh, yes, good.
They should be well south of it.
Let's get the scope on those at the top here.
Should be down in California, Mexico by now, but
Right,
still
sure.
here, lingering.
Sure.
Beautiful view once you get up here.
Oh,
on a
this
day
is
like
wonderful. This is great.
Very little wind today, so everything's fairly flat, calm, and
Fantastic.
fresh snow on the mountains.
Look at that.
There's a few snow geese out there. It's
Yeah, a few
Great
for
view.
sure. Wonderful. Let's get the scope set up and have a look here.
So we're looking at the Fraser River Delta. This is the end of the Fraser River, the mighty Fraser River that has the headwaters up in Mount Robson area in the Rocky. And it's emptying out into the Gulf of Georgia, or the Georgia Straits here.
So this is
That's-
Georgia Straits
yeah,
along here?
that's all the Gulf Islands, and Vancouver Island is the higher ground. And it's a very important area. It's an extending marsh, so it's got a lot of cattails in it. And a lot of these geese dig up those roots of the marsh plants, so that's what they feed on at low tide.
Tell me, John, how does this area compare to other overwintering spots for waterfowling?
Well, I think this is one of the main areas in Canada for wintering waterfowl and geese. It was set up for that reason, to protect the Wrangel Island snow geese, which you can see out there. And there are actually tens of thousands of duck out there too. And it's ice-free most of the year.
And these snow geese, they're coming from Wrangel Island in Siberia, is that
That's
right?
right, yeah. All the snow geese you see here have been born there. That's 4,000 plus kilometres.
No kidding.
It can be quite a good wintering area now for trumpeter swans. There might be 500 or 600 here for the winter.
Mm-hmm.
There's the little ones out there. The eagle has just taken off from the post. He's a long way off there, but he might flush a few snow geese up. They have the ability to carry a snow goose, the bald eagle, so you sometimes see them going into the nesting area with a snow goose.
So with 15 to 20,000 snow geese and another couple of tens of thousands of ducks, there's lots to do here for a bird watcher,
Sure,
isn't there?
yeah.
The trip to Vancouver was by far the most productive of our expeditions to date, with 51 new species for our Twits and Pishers life list. After having such a fine time, I can certainly recommend a November trip to Vancouver to anyone with an interest in birds. And you know, quite often in Vancouver you'll hear people say, "Nice weather if you're a duck." And you know, I think they mean it.
There's one species of bird that's found in Vancouver and nowhere else in North America, the crested myna. It's an introduced bird, originally from Asia. And right here on Granville Street and 70th Avenue, that's one of the best spots to find them. They're a big city bird. They like it here. They don't mind the traffic, the noise. They're kind of like a starling. In fact, they're in the starling family. They're closely related. And it seems like they're almost extinct here. I've seen them here in years past, but it's all starlings here now. The starling is out competing the myna, and the fast food places aren't making as much junk as they used to. It's, you know, garbage, things that myna birds can eat. So it's just not the same kind of deal. I would just check those starlings out there. You got to look for white wing patches and a little poofy forehead on them. I've had a great time in Vancouver. It was nice seeing all those birds that fly to the coast for the winter. But what about the other Canadian migratory birds, the ones that go south for the winter? Maybe we should go south too and see what they're on to, see what we're missing. Apparently, the best place to look for these mynas, by the way, is around the garbage cans in the back alleys. So maybe that's what I'll do next. See you later. Happy bird watching.
And don't forget our title contest. Send in your suggestions, or if you like the title Twits and Pishers, do tell us why.
Yeah, as soon as I said birding, I knew damn well why you were here.
Oh, that's good. They're coastal guys.
I know, but can't you find them in Point Grey or anything?
No, nothing. No.
Get out of town.